What's up, tennis fans? Sleepy Picks here. We're going to go through our Day 3 recap of the Monte Carlo Masters and take a look at some second round picks. Let's get started. Here's a look at Alcaraz's quarter of the draw. First match we're going to talk about is Alcaraz against Baez. Baez able to get through a nice win over Stan Wawrinka, and that match got a little bit tricky at the end, So Stan able to get up a break in the first set, and that's exactly what you want, especially, when you're the underdog, you're going up against a younger guy. It's your last year on tour, but you have the crowd on your side. He was able to get up a break, and there were clear nerves from Baez to start this match. So, honestly, I would look out for those. Against Carlos. I feel like Carlos is going to be able to get up an early break as well and just kind of take advantage of those nerves. You guys remember, so Baez lost a tough match to Drogwe last week, and in his press conference he noted that he was just looking forward to Monte Carlo and playing here. Obviously he got a very tough draw against Stan first round, able to get through the match, but clear nerves at the beginning of this match to go down a break. You could tell he just wasn't comfortable out there. He's playing a little bit defensive. Stan looked good at hitting his offensive shots with his backhand and his forehand. And I mean, guys, like, how clean is that Stan one-hander? I mean, it still looks great. He's lost a little bit of zip on it. He's lost a little bit of power on it, but it's still so clean when he hits it. And you can just hear it through the speakers of the TV how clean that shot is. So Baez able to fight back. He starts to be much more offensive, and I think that's, especially when you're playing somebody like Stan, you want to challenge their movement, and we kind of talked about that in our breakdown of that match. Baez has to look to challenge the movement and be the aggressor, and that's exactly what he did. Was able to break back and then get a 7-5 win in the first, goes up 5-1 in the second set, and Stan able to close it to 5-all. And guys, this felt so much like it was going to be a third set. It felt like Baez just had no chance of closing this out. Again, you see at 5-1, the nerves start to creep in. He gets a little bit softer on some of these balls. Stan's able to step in, and the last thing you want is to have Stan with momentum and the crowd behind him. But Baez able to survive. Stan's able to get it back to 5-all. Baez breaks Stan to go up 6-5 and serves and holds. I think it's at 40-15. He's able to finally get the match completed. And gotta give Baez some credit there. A lot of nerves. Obviously, crowd's completely against you. You're playing a legend. So just a lot of credit got to go out to Baez too for getting the win here in straight sets for sure, because that felt so much like we were either going to a breaker or it was going to be 7-5 Stan in the second set. Now, I don't know how Stan was going to be able to handle the final set against Baez, but good on Baez to get through that in straights before it got a little messy at the end. He now takes on Carlos Alcaraz. Head-to-head for these two is 3-0 for Alcaraz. One meeting in 2021, Alcaraz won in straights in the Next Gen Finals. One meeting in 2022, Alcaraz won 7-5, 7-5 in the U.S. Open. 2-0 retired in 2022. And then in 2025, Alcaraz beat him in the Tokyo Open in the first round, 6-4, 6-2. This is Alcaraz's first match on the clay, and honestly, I think this is going to be a pretty good match for him to kind of get his feet wet. There's a few dangerous guys floating around. I don't think he wanted to play Stan. I think that would have been a little bit trickier, just given the crowd situation and the fact that Stan is such a legend, here. He's won this tournament before. There would be a little bit of pressure on Carlos playing that match first round. But again, you do have a few other like dangerous guys like Monfils and Tabilo. There's a few guys that are floating around this draw that might have posed a little bit more of a challenge to Alcaraz in his first clay court match. I think Baez is the perfect guy for him to play because he gives you such a nice ball to hit. Like, I think Carlos is going to get into a really nice rhythm. He's going to be able to move Baez. I don't see Baez being able to be the aggressor here in this situation. And I do think, like, we got to look at how Baez is going to be starting this match because I felt like there were a lot of nerves. And guess what? The crowd's going to be even more amped for Carlos Alcaraz to be coming out and playing. So Baez might feel those nerves again. Plus, you have the weight of I've never won a set against this guy. So there's a lot of things going against Baez here. Baez is 6-4 on the clay this year, 17-14 the year before, 26-11 the year before that. Had the nice win against Stan. We talked about the Bucharest Open where he beat Galbis in straights easily, and Galbis is like a mid-tier challenger level player, so that's an expected win. But then lost to Droguet, and that was a little bit surprising. A straight set loss there. For me, looking at this matchup, there's not really much more that I want to talk about because I think Carlos is going to advance out of this quarter. I think this is a great match for him to get ready for the clay season. He's not going to play somebody that's tricky, somebody maybe that has like a little bit of firepower that might throw him off a little bit on the clay. Baez just the perfect hitter for Carlos to play against. I'm going to go Carlos Alcaraz to advance here. He's going to advance in straight sets. Next match, we have Lehecka taking on Tabilo. And the Tabilo match recap I'll be a little bit quick on. Not much really to say here. Tabilo just looks so comfortable on the surface. I'm sure he's happy to be back playing on the clay as opposed to the hard court. He was just using his clay court prowess, his lefty prowess, to just get Fuchsovich off the court, open the court up, come in, hit his shots. Not really much of a challenge for Tabilo today. So good to see him advance and continue his good clay court winning ways in Monte Carlo. The other match against Lehecka and Nava was a much more interesting match, and gotta hand it to Emilio Nava. I mean, he's really impressed me for sure. His record on the clay last year was very impressive, and you see a guy get, I think he had 40 plus wins maybe on the clay or something like that, and you see a guy get that many wins on the clay, and there's a reason for it. There's a reason for it because Emilio Nava, doesn't have a lot of those wins on the hard courts, and he just moves so much better on the clay. Like, I was so impressed with, a guy his size, the way he's able to track down all those balls, slide out in an open stance to get the shots back. You have Emilio Nava's at 6'1", not that tall, but just able to, the way he moves though is so impressive on the clay. He doesn't do that. He doesn't move like that on the hard court, which is a little bit concerning. He's got to learn how to adjust and adapt to the different surfaces. But looking at this match, Lehecka able to tough out a grindy first set, and obviously, a little bit of discomfort there. We were thinking maybe Lehecka would have that hangover from Miami, getting to the finals, giving Sinner all he could handle, but losing 4-4. And a lot of times you do see like that hangover where maybe the guy's just not ready to go up again, and it kind of looked like that at the beginning. Obviously, back and forth here in the first set. And Lehecka was able to push Nava a lot on his service games. And you could tell, like, that's why I was just so impressed. Like, Nava was saving a lot of break points. And it wasn't from the Lehecka misses. It was from Nava either serve +1 or setting the ball up so he could hit a forehand down the line. Just extremely impressive stuff from him. Gets to the breaker, and the breaker's a little bit sloppy from Nava. Lehecka able to take advantage of that, winning it 7-1. In the next set, Nava gets an early break on Lehecka and is able to kind of carry that out, gets to 5-3, and just a little bit of nerves, like some errant misses that we're not used to seeing from him. And Lehecka able to get that back to 5-all. It really, at that point, it felt like it was going to be a straight set 7-6, 7-6, or 7-6, 7-5 match for Lehecka. But Nava able to fight back and get that second set in a breaker in impressive fashion. He had some really clutch points, and honestly, like the first set breaker was mostly on him. I wouldn't really give Lehecka like the benefit of the doubt there. I thought Nava just hit a few too many errors there. Cleaned it up in the second set breaker, able to get the set under his belt. And third set, he came out a little bit slow. Lehecka able to go up an early break, and that kind of set the tone for that third set for them. And good on Lehecka to get through this. You could tell after the match he was extremely excited to survive a match like this. And obviously, when you feel like the other player is playing so well against you, it feels good to get the dub there. So good on Lehecka to advance 7-6, 6-7, 6-2. He takes on Tabilo, and looking at their head-to-head, it is 2-0 for Lehecka. Let's take a look at their matches here. One came in 2019, one came in 2022, so not sure how much we can put weight on those. Both on clay, though. The 2019 one was a 2-6, 6-3, 6-2 win for Lehecka, and then in Munich in 2022 it was a 6-4, 7-6 win for Lehecka. So nice win there for him. Tabilo sitting at 14-4 on the clay, and Lehecka 1-0 this year on the clay with just that one win against Nava. Tabilo last year was 6-7 on the clay, 15-10 the year before. Lehecka was 5-5 last year, 4-1 the year before that. And you do remember he was injured, I believe, in 2024, but made it out to, I think it was either the semis or the finals of a clay master series. It might have been Monte Carlo. So does have experience here on these courts. I think this is going to be a really tough match here for these guys. Even though Lehecka holds that 2-0 head-to-head, this is the best tennis that Tabilo's been playing all his entire career. So, and the one thing that I love about Tabilo is he's going to be able to expose that Lehecka backhand a little bit. And we talked about the courts are a little bit slower, so that allows Lehecka to kind of step around and start to dictate with his forehand. So that's something that we got to be a little bit worried about. But I feel like Tabilo, with the confidence, with the lefty spin, is going to be able to expose that Lehecka backhand. And, when we talk about players that are able to win matches against Lehecka, it is because they're able to kind of like rush that backhand or expose that backhand a little bit. We saw Felix do it in Dubai. Obviously, Felix with the very heavy-hitting backhand, or very heavy-hitting forehand. And Baez was able to do it at Indian Wells, taking the balls early, just kind of grinding Lehecka down, making him hit one or two extra shots. Tabilo can do that on the clay. And then Sinner, obviously, in a class of his own, able to just dictate and hit big shots left and right against Lehecka. I kind of like seeing that Baez loss because I kind of feel like this match is going to be a lot like that. Now, remember, Nava was giving his own fair share of errors. Nava was hitting offensive, giving Lehecka pace. Tabilo's not going to be giving Lehecka a lot of pace. Lehecka's going to have to accelerate the racket himself. He's going to have to do it himself. So I really lean towards Tabilo to get this done in 3 sets. He's going to be the one that's going to grind out some of these wins. He hasn't had a top-notch clay court win yet. Like beats Taranti, beats Barros Vera, loses to Baez, loses in the finals of Rio to Etcheverry. I like Tabilo. I think he's going to get a signature win here. Maybe we get a second match hangover for Lehecka after that Miami Open final. But I really like Tabilo to advance through here and beat Lehecka. So give me Tabilo in 3 sets. And guys, I keep saying I'm not going to do this, but I keep talking so long on each of these matches, so I got to really pick it up. I can't have this be like a 2-hour video. But we do have chapters, so you guys can find them. If you want to skip through my rantings about the matches, you can skip through it, get to the pick of the match. Here's a look at Alcaraz's quarter of the draw, and I want to go through these matches with you guys just to give you like a little bit of like a cliff notes of where we saw each of the matches. We already talked about the Alcaraz Baez. We already talked about Lehecka Tabilo. How about Etcheverry and Dimitrov? I just think Etcheverry is going to be the stronger clay quarter. He's going to press the Dimitrov ground strokes to kind of come up and be perfect. Dimitrov has had a little bit of success in Monte Carlo, so if he's able to step on the baseline and dictate, that might be something that really threatens Etcheverry, especially the way that we saw Tommy Paul was able to do that in Houston against Etcheverry. So look for that if Dimitrov's able to do that. I just don't trust his consistency right now, so I got to go with Etcheverry. He's definitely the stronger clay quarter. We know Etcheverry able to win Rio de Janeiro over Tabilo, got a nice 500 Masters or 500 ATP Tour level win for himself there. So he's coming in with a lot of confidence for sure. Then we have Atmane and Quinn. That match we got Quinn playing pretty well. I picked Quinn to advance. I kind of like him coming out of the qualifiers. Lost a tough one to Komasana. Komasana's a tough clay quarter, but Atmane I think is going to have a little bit of trouble finding the footing under the clay here. Ball's going to move a little bit slower. I like the way that Quinn plays on the clay, so I'll be interested to see. Atmane's not really a clay quarter. I think if Quinn ran into a clay quarter, like somebody with some clay court prowess, I think that's going to really trouble him. Like if he plays Etcheverry next round, like I'm going to go with Etcheverry there. But right now, I mean, Terrence Atmane, I'm not really too threatened by him for Ethan Quinn, so I'm going to go with Quinn to advance in that match. And then the final one is Monfils and Bublik, and I just think this is a great match for Bublik just to get his feet wet on the clay, get comfortable. We remember this was the surface that he was able to find success last year, getting a nice upset against Draper at the French Open. I think he's going to kind of touch down on the clay. Hasn't had a great season so far. A little bit of regression from him. But I think he's going to touch down now on the clay and find a little bit more success. So definitely look for Bublik to advance there. Haven't seen Monfils. I don't think Monfils has won back-to-back matches yet this year. So let's look for Bublik to advance there. Maybe it's a little bit tough to start, but I think it's going to be straight sets there. Looking at the full quarter itself, I just don't see anyone being able to challenge Alcaraz here. I think he's going to advance pretty easily to the semifinals. But let me know what you guys think, and let's move on to the next part of the draw. And here's a look at Musetti's quarter. First match we're going to look at is Musetti against Vacherot, and Vacherot against Juan Manuel Cerundolo, guys. What a match. I mean, this match was 7-5, 2-0 for Juan Manuel Cerundolo, and all of a sudden the match gets flipped on its head. We had a point, Cerundolo had a point to go up 3-0. Vacherot with 3 put-away shots finally gets it, puts his arms up in the air like, thank God I won this point. The crowd starts to get on his side, and he starts to get a little bit of momentum, and honestly, I felt like that loosened him up, and he started to become far more aggressive against Cerundolo. And Cerundolo is the type of guy that, tough lefty, got a lot of spin, but he's the type of guy that he can't hurt you. The only way that he wins is if you hurt yourself most of the time, if you commit a lot of those unforced errors. He's just not the type of guy that's going to, take the racket out of your hands or take the match from you. And I feel like once Vacherot kind of realized that like he can play this patient game and then inflict some power onto Cerundolo to catch him off guard. It was basically like we saw like one cross, two cross, three cross, and then one powerful shot cross, court's open, Vacherot puts the ball away. And he did that a lot in the second set, a lot in the third set. He's able to get through this match. I mean, I'm just impressed in the adjustments that he was able to make, the patience that he was able to show, and the fight he had coming back from a set and a breakdown to win the match, and to only drop one game after that was so impressive. Vacherot wins 5-7, 6-2, 6-1. He now sets up a match against Lorenzo Musetti, and this is Musetti's first match on the clay. And if you guys remember, we saw Musetti obviously have an amazing run in Melbourne at the Australian Open, beating Collignon, beating Sonego, beating Machac, beating Fritz, and losing to Djokovic, having to retire after being up 2-0. So Musetti came back at Indian Wells from the injury, lost in straights to Fucsovics. So I'm a little bit concerned kind of with what kind of Musetti we're going to get here. He definitely recognized that he was not ready to come back. He wanted to focus a little bit more on the clay. So smartly enough, he skips Miami. Now he's ready to play in Monte Carlo. I'm curious to see what kind of he's going to be very comfortable on the surface. And I felt like against Fucsovics, he was not playing with that aggression that we saw in the Australian Open. He was playing a little bit defensive, but that's the type of style you might be able to get away with here. Vacherot, on the other hand, is 1-0, 24-12 last year on the clay, 15-9 the year before that. Musetti, 19-4 last year on the clay, 18-10 the year before that. So Vacherot with only one clay match against Juan Manuel Cerundolo. Before that, he's coming off a tough 3-set loss to Arthur Fils in Miami, but was able to beat Novoni, who had a challenger win the week before, and Berrettini in straight sets. No head-to-head for these guys here. We know what Musetti can do. We know that he was a finalist last year, losing to Carlos in 3 sets. In 2024, made the third round, made the quarterfinals in 2023, losing to Sinner. So he's had some decent results here. I'm just so worried about the Musetti that we're going to get, and that just concerns me a lot. Vacherot, on the other hand, really hasn't made it out of the second round of this tournament, so we gotta, hasn't had a lot of room there. But I like the fact that he's gotten one match under his belt, kind of shook the nerves a little bit, maybe playing in front of the crowd and everything. So this match, I think, is going to be really tough for Musetti. And this is you got some other players like Alexander Blockx. If Musetti played him, I think that's a great match to kind of start off with. Cam Norrie, even Kekmanovic, Shapo, Komasana. Those are guys that I feel like Musetti can kind of chew up and get his feet wet here on the clay. But Vacherot's not that type of guy. Like, I think this is going to be a very tough match here. I'm going to go with Musetti to win this match. I just feel like he's going to come out, and if he plays his A game, he's winning in straights. But I haven't seen his A game since the Australian Open, since January. That's what's really troubling me. He hasn't played a tournament, only played Indian Wells since January. One match since January. So to expect this guy to play and win against Vacherot, a top 25 guy right now, that's a lot to ask for. But I'm going to pick Musetti. I think this is going to be a 3-setter. Vacherot is going to have something to say about it. Wouldn't surprise me if Vacherot won. I'm going to be kicking myself if Vacherot wins because I'm really leaning him. But at the same time, Musetti's the better clay quarter. I think even the Musetti A- or B+ game is going to be Vacherot. So I'm going to go with Musetti. Give me Musetti in 3 tough sets. Next match is Cobolli playing Blockx, and really happy about Blockx being able to take out Chapo in 3 sets. I think we called that. I know we called the Blockx upset for sure, but I think we called it in 3 sets as well. Block's just a little bit too strong there. He played just great tennis, and we know what he's capable of. He's had a lot of success on the Challenger Tour, gets up to these tour level events, kind of gets a little bit nervous, not able to convert a lot of these, but it's always good playing somebody like Chapo who kind of throws in a few errors here and there, like, oh, hey, you're nervous? Well, here's a free point, at 30 all, or here's a free point at 15:30. So a lot of errors from Chapo. Black's able to target that Chapo backhand, which on the clay just isn't really able to do much. And I was most impressed, Block's ability to redirect the ball. Like, he was taking a lot of shots from Chapo and just redirecting them down the line. So extremely impressive stuff from him. I'm happy he got a little bit of a breakthrough moment, getting a win in a Masters series. He now goes up against Cobolli, and this Cobolli-Comesaña match, guys, that's probably the match of the day for me. That I feel like hands down it's the match of the day. It just delivered with excitement, with shot making. Both these guys played phenomenal tennis. The one thing that I looked out for Comesaña was what we had talked about back in the South American swing, patience. Was he going to be able to be patient, play these longer points, maybe get some errors from Cobolli, or was he just going to come out and try to just overhit the ball, which is what we saw a little bit in the South American swing. It's what we saw against Korda in Indian Wells. So he came out and he was extremely patient. He got a lot of points from Cobolli, and got a credit to Comesaña. This match was 7-5, 2-1. Cobolli up a break, and then Comesaña reels off 5 straight games to get to take the second set. Extremely impressive from him there, but Cobolli just a little bit too much. I was so impressed with how Cobolli was moving on the clay. You talk about, maybe it was just me watching too much of like the Houston Open, just seeing people who don't really know how to move on the clay, who are a little bit uncomfortable on the clay. Cobolli just moves so effortlessly. He's sliding into his shots. He's coming back. I mean, he had a couple of crazy passing shots on the run. Like, he just looks effortless out there, and got a credit to him. I mean, that's a nice win, especially after losing 5 straight games, going up a set and a break, thinking, wow, like, I'm 4 games away from being in the locker room, and now you got to play a whole nother set. Able to win that 6-3, so good 3-set win for Cobolli. This matchup here is definitely going to be an interesting one. Obviously, this is going to be their first matchup, and I'm curious to see how Cobolli does against the power and ability to take time away from Blockx. So like I think that Blockx might give him a little bit of trouble. I just don't know about that Blockx defense. Blockx being able to defend the forehand of Cobolli. I think Comesaña much more suited to being able to do that on the clay than Blockx. Blockx likes to be the one that's the aggressor, and here I feel like it's going to be like 50-50, maybe 60-40 to Cobolli being the aggressor, and I don't know how I like Blockx in those types of points. No head-to-head again here for these guys. We have Blockx is 3-0 right now on the clay, getting the 2 qualifier wins and the first round win over Chapo. 4-4 last year, 7-3 the year before. So not a lot of matches on the clay for Alexander Blockx. A little bit more of a hard court player, getting a lot of matches on the outdoor and indoor hard courts. Cobolli, on the other hand, 1-0 with that 1 win over Comesaña. 15-6 last year, 10-9 the year before. Had a nice breakthrough last year with some good runs here, and we did talk about his straight set loss at Roland Garros to Zverev. That was a little bit interesting for me because I thought Cobolli was going to be able to push him, but it seemed like it was just too big of a moment for him. And I think for him especially, I think he wants to get back there and play another one of those big moment matches in Roland Garros because I think he wants to prove himself this year. Not really much more I can say about this. I just feel like Cobolli's forehand is going to be too big for Blockx to handle. I don't know how I trust the Blockx defense on the clay. I thought Blockx was able to either be neutral or the offensive player today against Shapo. So tomorrow he's going to find himself in the next round, he's going to find himself on the defensive a lot more. And I just feel like that's going to favor Cobolli a lot. I loved what I saw from Cobolli today. I think this is going to be Cobolli winning in straight sets, maybe one tough set, but give me Cobolli in straights. And here's a look at Musetti's quarter of the draw. And I'll give you the cliff notes on the matches we didn't talk about. Mensik and Maroszan. I like Mensik. I'm not sure how much I like Mensik on the clay, but I definitely like him over Maroszan. Maroszan has had a few clay court matches under his belt, which might give him a step up above Mensik, but I just can't trust Maroszan just yet. He hasn't had great results since being on the Australian swing, and he made the semifinals last week of Bucharest, but having wins over Sakhlarides outside the top 300, and then Altmaier, who was playing his 8th match in 11 days, I'm not sure how much I can really say, like, wow, that's a good win, because then he goes in and plays Berita and loses 6-1 in the third. Just not a great showing from Maroszan. So I think Mensik's going to be able to take care of that in straights, maybe in 3 if he has to. Darderi against Hurkacz. Again, Hurkacz very similar. Not having a great season right now. He doesn't like the clay. Darderi definitely angry from the Machac loss, so he's gonna be looking to get some revenge. I think he's gonna he'll beat whoever he has to face in the first round. It happens to be Hurkacz, so I think Darderi is gonna advance there in straights, and then DeMinaur and Norrie. Again, another revenge spot here. Remember, Norrie able to take out DeMinaur in Indian Wells, which was a tough match for DeMinaur to lose. But I think DeMinaur is going to be able to get the revenge. Definitely thinking about that match there. Probably wanted the rematch with Norrie. So I think he's going to win that one in straights and advance. Looking at the Musetti quarter as a whole, obviously we talked about if Musetti's at his A game, he's going to get through to the semifinals. If not, I loved what I'm seeing from Cobolli. I don't know how much I can trust Darderi to beat Musetti, though. I think it's going to be funny. The hardest match that he's going to have, Musetti, is probably going to be this round of 32 match against Vacherot. If he plays DeMinaur or even Cobolli, again, for Cobolli and Darderi, you have that big brother scenario from Musetti where he's the top dog, and he's definitely going to assert himself. And there's a little bit of, I don't know if I want to say intimidation, but, these guys feel like they have to play a little extra better to beat a guy like Musetti, and sometimes that forces some misses. I don't see Musetti losing to Darderi, and I don't know if I even see him losing to Cobolli. Cobolli's playing really well, though, so we'll have to see what happens there. Let's move on to the next part of the draw. Here's a look at Zverev's quarter of the draw. First match we have is Fonseca against Rinderknech. And Fonseca, great win. Obviously, Diallo, not the best of clay quarters. So, can we put a lot of weight on that and call it an amazing win? The fact that he was able to do it in straight sets and he was the dominant player the entire time. So, I'm going to call that a good win for him. We do remember Diallo had a pretty nice run at Indian Wells. Fonseca also with a nice run at Indian Wells and definitely had his confidence going. I mean, Fonseca's last 2 losses were to Alcaraz in Miami, and then before that was Sinner in Indian Wells. So not that bad of losses there for Fonseca. I think he's playing pretty well, and a lot of the problems with Fonseca is just the confidence in his game and the ability to know when to hit the right shot. He's got every shot in the book. It's just sometimes he seems to pull out the wrong shot at the wrong time. And here we're starting to see that confidence. I like that he's using that aggressive forehand. He was able to dictate a lot. He had Diallo in a lot of defensive positions. So Fonseca looked good. He's definitely going to be tested in the next round against Rinderknech. Rinderknech able to beat Khachanov in straight sets. And, I'm kind of kicking myself for not picking this match because I mean, we talked about it. Like, Kachanov's not a great clay quarter, but Rinderknech really doesn't have much experience at all on the clay. 9-10 last year on the clay, 6-7 the year before. So this is a solid win. This might be one of his better wins on the clay in the last 5 years. So good on him to do it in straight sets. He seemed like the better player. He was moving well. He was defending well, and he was able to just kind of bait Kachanov into making some errors. And that was eventually what got him that first set. Holding for 6-5 and then putting a lot of pressure on the Kachanov serve. He kept putting pressure on him throughout that first set, and Kachanov finally broke, giving that set away at 7-5. And then we saw the pressure continue through in the second set with Rinderknech winning 6-2. Guys, I think we got to put kind of a flag on Kachanov. I don't know if we really want to take him in any of these clay court matches. He looks okay, but he really is lacking confidence. He just doesn't seem to be especially in a big moment like that where you're serving to get to the breaker at 5-6. Like, Kachanov should be the player dictating most of those points, being the confident one, and he just wasn't. Rinderknech looked like the better guy. He looked like the seeded player in that scenario. I mean, also, you got to consider Rinderknech the 27th ranked player. This is a tough draw for Kachanov to draw the 27th ranked guy in the first round, but neither here nor there. Rinderknech advances 7-5, 6-2 to take on Fonseca. Looking at these guys, they do not have a head-to-head against each other, so this will be their first meeting. Fonseca with that 2-2 on the clay. Remember, he did go over to South America for the swing there, losing in 3 sets in Buenos Aires to Tabilo, and then losing in 3 sets to Buse in Rio. Rinderknech, on the other hand, this is his first clay court win over Kachanov for the year. Rinderknech able to make it to loss in the second round of Miami to Terence Atmane, a little bit disappointing for him, and then a tough 3-set loss in Indian Wells after getting the walkover from Juan Manuel Cerundolo. This is, to me, obviously, this is not Rinderknech's preferred surface. Here's how I see it. If Fonseca plays his best tennis, he wins this match. But it's so hard for me to just say, because we've seen so many days where Fonseca just comes out and you're like, what am I watching? I want to pick him. I really do. I think he's got the confidence now. Diallo, not a great clay quarter. I can't let that bias me into picking him here. Rinderknech, obviously, with a nice win over Kachanov. He matched up pretty well against Kachanov. Now he's gonna have to defend the power and the all-around game of Fonseca. Is he gonna be able to do that? I don't know. I think Kachanov is going to be the aggressor in this match. I think he has to be, because we know Rinderknech has the ability to play the serve and volley, to play a serve +1. He can be the aggressor, and we don't want Fonseca on the defense. I think that's one big thing. Fonseca's got to be able to take advantage of the second serves. He's got to be able to take advantage of his serve +1s. He's got to be the one that's kind of forcing the issue against Rinderknech and putting pressure on his service games. So if he's able to do that, I think he's going to be able to win this match. I like Fonseca right now. Let's see if he can if Rinderknech can prove me wrong, but Rinderknech hasn't played that great on the clay. Fonseca last year was 8-5, 14-11 the year before. I'm going to go with Fonseca to win this. I think it's going to be 3 sets. I think we're going to get a nice signature win for Fonseca in Monte Carlo. So give me Fonseca in 3. Next match, we have Rublev taking on Bergs, and Bergs able to get through Manarino 6-4, 6-3. Pretty nice win. We expected him to come through there. We expected to be. I thought it was going to be 3 sets. I thought Manarino was going to have something to say about it, but it was clear that Manarino did not really have a comfort on that surface. And Bergs showing a little bit more expertise on the clay, just really being the aggressor, being on the offense. Manarino not really able to do much to bother Bergs today. And we talked about how Bergs right now on the season is 7-7, so he kind of needs to jumpstart his season, and getting a few clay wins, especially a win over Andre Rublev in the next round, would definitely do it for him. So Bergs advances there. Rublev took on Borges, and we talk about how Borges a little bit defensive, doesn't really have like a big shot to kind of like control the court. And honestly, I think if Rublev played a guy that had a bigger forehand or bigger serve or something that would bother him, he got, I don't want to say lucky, but he was fortunate that Borges was a little bit more defensive. Rublev was able to kind of play the aggressor and control the middle of the court in the first set, able to take that 6-4. Then we saw Borges play a little bit more offensively in the second set, and once Rublev got down that double break, it was kind of like, well, I'm just going to play a third set instead of going and trying to win that second set. So he gets into the second set, gets an early break, or sorry, he gets into the third set, gets an early break, and is able to close Borges out. Just a few too many errors for me. Borges, to me, I felt like was playing a style that he's not too comfortable playing. Just a little over-aggressive, but trying to be the one that's kind of moving Rublev around. I think he kind of recognized that Rublev's movement still needed a little bit of adjusting, especially in that second set. And in the third set, it was much better. I thought Rublev was moving a lot better. The one thing that I noticed in the first and second set was that backhand wide from Rublev. You know, he would take it in an open stance and just he'd be missing them wide a little bit too much. And, you know, it's a shot that we're just not used to seeing Rublev miss a lot. It's a shot that he's able to hit and, like, kind of rope pretty comfortably. So, was surprised at that. We got to look and see. I think Rublev's going to play a much cleaner match here against Bergs. Let's talk about that matchup here. These guys have a 1-1 head-to-head. First match came in 2024 in Rotterdam. Rublev was able to win 7-5, 6-3 on the indoor hard courts in the first round. In 2025, they played in Miami, and Bergs was able to win 7-5, 6-4 in the second round of Miami. Similar meeting here where we're meeting in the second round again. I kind of trust Rublev a little bit more. We have Rublev at 1-0 on the clay, just that one win over Borges. 8-6 in 2025, 11-6 in 2024, 19-5 in 2023. So he is regressing a little bit on the clay here. Bergs, on the other hand, 1-0 this year with that one win over Manarino, 2-5 last year, 17-7 the year before, and 16-7 in 2023. So not too bad from Zizou Bergs, although last year a little bit questionable with that 2-5 record. I feel like this is going to be another 3-setter for Rublev, and I kind of trust him to be the guy with the more experience of being in this type of setting to get through a match like this. I do think that Bergs is going to be able to be a little bit more offensive than Borges was. So look out for that. If Bergs can kind of challenge the movement of Rublev, then I think that might be effective for him in winning. But I just can't trust Bergs. You know, we talked about Bergs in his first round match. You know, this is like great. He got a win over Manarino. Manarino not great on the clay. We talked about how he's only had like 2, 3, or 4 wins in the last like 8 years or something like that. He does not like the clay. So that's a good win for Bergs to get through. But at the same time, I think there's like 80% of the draw that Bergs could have played that he was going to lose to. So let's see how he does against Rublev. This is a nice matchup, though, for Bergs, for sure. Like, you know, I think he would rather play Rublev than Zverev or Sinner or any of those guys. So a pretty nice draw because he can get this upset if he really plays his best. But I'm gonna go Rublev. I think he's gonna win in 3 sets. So give me Rublev in 3. We have Christian Garin against Zverev, and guys, don't do what I just did and assume that this is going to be an easy straight setter for Zverev. Christian Garin has a 2-1 head-to-head on Alexander Zverev. Let's go through their matches here. In 2019, Garin won in Munich the quarterfinals 6-4, 5-7, 7-5. In 2022, Zverev got some revenge in Rome, winning 7-5, 6-2. And in 2024, Garin got the better of Zverev again in Munich, 6-4, 6-4. All three of those meetings were in the quarterfinals. I feel like this is going to be a very tough match. Garin able to get through Arnaldi 6-2, 6-4. Arnaldi was a qualifier, so both of them were qualifiers actually. So good on them to get through this match here, and Garin getting through qualifying, beating De Jong in 3 sets, and then beating Basilashvili in straights. And guys, I did talk about how I kind of liked the way Arnaldi was playing. I thought he was getting a little bit stronger, but apparently not. But Garin is a tough customer on the clay. 4-2 this year on the clay, 39-13 the year before, only 13-14 the year before that, 18-12 in 2023. But the 39-13 is pretty solid in 2025, even though the majority of those might have been on challenger level. It still shows that he does have a comfort with this surface. Garin losing in straight sets to Taranti and Rio, and then beating Juan Manuel Cerundolo. That's a pretty good win for him. And then losing to Baez in a tough 3-setter. Zverev, on the other hand, is coming off a semifinal appearance, losing to Jannik Sinner in Miami. He has not played a match on clay. This is going to be a very tricky match, I think, for him. And honestly, guys, if Garin wants any chance, he's got to get an early break. I think he's got to really let Zverev feel that pressure on his service games. The one thing that we got to credit Zverev with throughout this year is how well he has been serving and how well he has been holding on some of these clutch games. Able to go 6-3, 7-6 with Sinner. So had chances to win that second set in Miami, and he served a little bit better. Remember, he lost to Sinner at Indian Wells, and it was 6-2, 6-4, barely even close, but he didn't serve well there. In Miami, able to serve a little bit better and push Sinner a little bit more, and that's something that I feel like he's going to have to carry over to this surface as well, as how well he is serving. We'll see how he does against Garin. And, honestly, I went back because I wanted to watch that the most previous match in Munich, how Garin played Zverev. And two things I noticed. One, Garin was the aggressor a lot of the time, pushing Zverev back, which we might be able to see here, because remember, this is Zverev's first match on the clay, so he might not be as comfortable, so Garin might have more opportunities to be on offense than we would think. And number two, Garin used the drop shot to bring Zverev into the net when he wasn't as comfortable coming in. We know Zverev does come into net, but he likes to do it on his own terms, off of his own big shots. So using the drop shot to drag him into net, or even just getting a winner off that drop shot, challenging the up and back movement of Zverev. So those two things I think are going to be key for Garin to win this match. I got to go with Zverev. I think he's playing extremely good tennis. He is 15-5 right now. All matches have been on outdoor hard court, but I think we know that he does play extremely well on the clay. 18-7 last year, 23-6 the year before, 20-7 the year before that, 17-5 the year before that. He is 206 and 86 all time on the clay. So very solid record for him. And in fact, that record is better than his. I think it's just slightly better than his hard court record. So very impressive stuff from Zverev on the clay. We know he's familiar with this surface. I don't think it's going to take too long for him to become acclimated. I think Garin is going to have to play the perfect match to win this. So give me Zverev in straights. I feel like both sets are going to be really tough, like 7-5, 6-4, or 7-6. But give me Zverev in straights. Just look at Zverev's quarter of the draw with my picks. I'll give you the cliff notes on that Bautista Agut Berrettini match. I know Bautista Agut able to get through the qualifying. That's very good for him, but I just don't see him getting through Berrettini, who's played pretty well on the clay so far. 2 losses to Buse. Buse playing extremely well to win those matches, but I did think in the last match, Berrettini felt like he was the better player, at least the more aggressive player. His forehand is definitely a shot to be reckoned with. I'm going to pick him to get through against Bautista Agut, and I think I'm going to pick him to get through Medvedev. I like Berrettini on this surface, and I know it sounds kind of funny because we know he's a solid grass quarter, but he does have a decent record here on the clay in the recent years. So look for him to maybe make a dent in this draw. Looking at the draw overall, I feel like Zverev can get out of here and get to the semis. I feel like I keep picking all the favorites, and I just this year of tennis, as funny as it sounds, with the depth in the ATP being so much, you would think there would be more upsets, but the top 2 guys, of course, Alcaraz and Sinner, are extremely tough outs. It's very tough for anybody to beat them. And then when you get to your 3, 4, 5, it's a little bit less scary playing those guys. But Zverev's taking care of business against most of the other players as well. He just struggles against some of these top guys. I mean, you look at Zverev's got 5 losses right now on the year. 1 was to Sinner. That's 2. A loss to Kekmanovic in Acapulco. That was a weird one. Lost to Alcaraz in Melbourne. We remember that one. He had chances to serve that one out. So that's 4 losses. And then a very strange iffy loss to Hurkacz early on in a tune-up in Australia. So 3 of the 5 losses were to the number 1 and number 2 guys. Not too shabby from Zverev. He's playing good tennis. I feel like he's going to be able to get out of here. I don't see Rublev or Bergs posing any challenge. I think that Garin match is actually going to be the toughest one for Zverev to get through. And then, God, I would love to see Fonseca get out to the quarterfinals. I mean, imagine Berrettini's able to beat Medvedev, and then Fonseca's able to beat Rinderknech, and then we get a Fonseca-Berrettini with a chance for one of those guys to get to the quarters. And then if I can see a Fonseca-Zverev match, man, I mean that's a chance for Fonseca for sure to get out of this draw. He's got all the weapons. He can do it. But he's just got to be able to put it together. And the minute he does, I think the rest of the tour is going to be in a lot of trouble. Maybe not our Sinners and Alcarazes, but I think the rest of the tour below that is going to be in a lot of trouble because Fonseca can really play some ball. Let's move on to the next part of the draw. Here's a look at Sinner's quarter of the draw, and only one match to talk about because a lot of these matches have not been played yet. We did have Cerundolo and Machac advance. Really nice win for Cerundolo. We know how good Tsitsipas has been on this surface in Monte Carlo. So for him to dispatch him 7-5, 6-4, it, 1, shows us that Cerundolo is playing decent tennis, but 2, it shows us how far Tsitsipas has fallen in the last few years. Definitely was expecting this to be a 3-setter at least. But for Cerundolo to come out and dictate with that forehand, that's huge for his confidence, especially coming on to the European swing. We know Cerundolo already 8-2 on the clay, so he's playing good tennis on the dirt. And then Machac able to get through Altmaier. And, we talked about Altmaier being getting to the finals, losing to Musetti in a challenger, and then coming out and playing, I think it was Marrakesh, but maybe it was Bucharest. Let me double check. Oh, you know what? It was Bucharest because he had the rain delay. So Altmaier able to come out and turn around, right, the 29th of March, then had to play on the 31st of March to beat Martinez. Rain delay the day after. He doesn't get out till the 3rd of April, plays Prismic, beats him in a tough 3-hour match, and then loses to Maroszan. Just ran out of gas there. And I'm kind of curious. I didn't get eyes on this Machac-Altmaier match, but I'm kind of curious if maybe that carried over a little bit to this match where maybe he just didn't have enough in the tank to complete it. But a 6-1 set in the middle of it, that's just so Thomas Machac, though. He just strange lapses in his game. You look at his loss in Miami to Mute, his loss in Miami to Mute. 6-0, he lost the first set, then won the second set 6-1. So it's like there's a lot of weird ups and downs in the Machac game, and that type of roller coaster I feel like is not going to bode well against Cerundolo. Let's talk about that head-to-head here with Cerundolo and Machac. 1-0 for Machac, who got a win in 2020 in the first round of the Prague Challenger. 6-2, 4-6, 6-0. Not sure how much we can weigh something that happened 6 years ago. It was on the clay. Cerundolo is coming in at 8-2 on the clay, 21-11 last year, 21-13 the year before. Machac, on the other hand, 1-1 on the clay, 2-5 last year, 9-5 the year before. And I think that Altmaier match, even though Altmaier not a seed, not really a high-ranked player, I think a win for Machac over Altmaier, that's a really good win. We were talking about maybe Altmaier didn't have a lot of gas left in the tank, but for Machac to win a match like that against a guy who's been playing pretty decent on the clay courts, that's a big plus for him. Can he get a win over Cerundolo? I don't think so. I think this is going to be a pretty straightforward match for Cerundolo. The Tsitsipas, obviously a great win for Cerundolo, but I think the Machac match is going to be a little bit easier for him. I'm going to go Cerundolo here to win in straight sets. I think that forehand's going to be too much for Machac. We kind of saw Hadar give us kind of like a template for a similar way that Cerundolo can play, just dictating and moving around and ripping his shots there to beat Machac. I think we're going to see something similar, but I think it's going to be straight sets. Cerundolo, a much more seasoned clay quarter as well. So give me Cerundolo to advance. He's going to win in straight sets. And here's a look at Sinner's quarter of the draw. We're going on our 1 hour mark. I promise I was like, I got to keep this under an hour, but I don't know if we're going to. Give you the cliff notes on some of these matchups. Cilic, Shevchenko. I like the serve of Cilic. I'm a little bit iffy on whether him or Shevchenko is going to come out and play well. Shevchenko coming through the qualifiers, so that does worry me. This is Cilic's first match on the clay. We'll see how comfortable he is, but I got to trust the confidence and serve and the aggressive return of Marin Cilic. I just like that a little bit more than the inconsistencies that I've seen from Shevchenko, so I'm picking him to advance there. Mute and Mueller, that's just a toss-up for me. This is probably one of the most toss-up matches in the first round. It could go either way. Mueller playing good tennis, but gave that retirement over in his last tournament to Hadar after he was getting killed in that match. Mute's going to work him a lot, and I think Mute's got to get right here. He's got to find that form, so a win over Mueller would definitely help. Popyrin and Ruud. Popyrin having a nice match against Tiafoe in Houston. This clay is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit slower. I think Popyrin's going to struggle a lot with his serve. Casper Ruud, always prone to errors, so we got to be aware of that, but I got to pick him. He's the savvier clay quarter to get through that match, so I'm going to pick him to advance in straight sets. And then last one, Humbert and Sinner. I mean, I don't even think that match is even going to be close. Sinner's going to advance and win that match in straight sets. So give me Sinner in straight set advance to the round of 16. Let's move on to the next slide. Here's a look at our record so far for the first round. 13-3 right now. So really a great showing, guys. Please keep following us. We're doing good work here. Would love to hear from you guys, though, as well in the comments. So don't be shy. Make sure you add your picks in the comments. And as always, guys, thanks again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. We will have a video out every single day recapping the matches that happen and giving you some picks for the next day. Stay tuned, and I'll see you guys in the next video.